time is it? It's 12:30. All right. Imagine this. You're sitting on death row, sentenced for a crime you didn't commit. You scream you're innocent and no one believes you. Years pass, your appeal fails, and then one day the states execute you. Only later does DNA evidence prove you were innocent all along. It sounds like a nightmare, right? But this isn't fiction. It's happened more than 190 times in the US since 1973. That's 190 people who were sentenced to die but were later found innocent, and that's terrifying. Today, I want to persuade to you why the death penalty should be abolished. It's a broken system, it's too expensive, it's unfair, and worst of all, it puts innocent lives at risk. I researched this using academic and legal sources, including Gottlieb's 2024 Law Review article, international studies by Hood and Hoyle, and human rights research Eric Newmeyer. All three of them had the same conclusion: the death penalty isn't justice, it's a mistake. So let's look at the three major reasons why death penalty must end. It costs more than life in prison, it has serious ethical problems, and it can and has killed innocent people. First, let's talk about the cost. A lot of people assume that executing someone is cheaper than keeping them in prison for life. And it sounds logical, but it's actually false. Death penalty can cost billions of dollars, more than non-death penalty cases. Why? Because the cases go through years or decades of appeals, retrials, and special legal procedures. The state has to pay for lawyers, judges, expert witnesses, and court time. All of that adds up, and we're the ones paying for it through our taxpayer money. According to Hood and Hoyle, just a trial for a death penalty can be up to 20 times more expensive than a regular trial. And then, housing death row inmates is also more costly. They're placed in maximum security facilities, often in solitary confinement, and with higher supervision and strict rules. That means more guards, more staff, more money. So instead of spending all of this money on trying to kill people, why not use that money for something that can actually help our communities? We could fund schools, mental health services, or programs to prevent crime in the first place. And if you refer to the visual aid, slide 1, you will see the death penalty and life imprisonment, which costs more. It's a graph. And if you just look at the first column itself, you will see that legal fees, blue is people who are on death penalty, and the red is people who are just life imprisonment with or without parole. The blue is $1,636,825, and the red is only $525,804. So that's almost triple the price if you want to compare it just at that surface level. But let's talk about ethics now. If it weren't so expensive, the death penalty would still be wrong. Why? Because it's not applied fairly. Let me ask you this. Should someone's life depend on the color of their skin, their bank account, or who their lawyer is? No, of course not, but in the US, it often does. Studies show that Black and Latino defendants are much more likely to get the death penalty than white defendants, especially if their victim is white. That's not justice, that's racial bias. Also, poor defendants often get overworked public defenders who don't have the time, the money, or experience to handle complicated death penalty cases. So wealthy people have better chance of avoiding the death penalty. And it's not because they're more innocent, but because they can afford better lawyers. Gottlieb writes about this in her article, showing how the system punishes the most vulnerable. She says we need to unbundle power from the punishment, especially when it comes to something as serious and as permanent as execution. Around the world, most countries have already moved past the death penalty. Newmeyer research shows that over 70% of the world's countries have abolished it in law or in practice. That includes all of Europe, Canada, Australia, and many others. They see it as a human rights violation, a violation of life and dignity. If we truly believe in equality and fairness, how can we support a punishment that is so deeply unequal? So if you look at visual aid slide 3, you're gonna see this slide that says, where does your state stand? And it shows a picture of the US map, and in dark blue you have the states that support, not support, but still have the death penalty, and then in light blue you have the states that have abolished it. There's only 2 gray areas, and the gray areas are government imposed moratorium, which is like suspending or delaying the death penalty until further notice. We're currently based on South Carolina, and South Carolina still has it. So does North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, a lot of the southern states. The only one who doesn't have it is New Mexico. But I'm from New York, and New York doesn't have it, so we love that. But yeah, know where your state stands so you can see what type of reform do you really need to do, or if you need to do any reform at all. Finally, and most importantly, the death penalty risks killing innocent people. This is the scariest part. We know that the justice system makes mistakes, but when the punishment is death, these mistakes become permanent and shouldn't be made. Imagine being accused of something you didn't do, you're poor, can't afford a strong defender, and the jury believes the wrong story. Before long, you're sentenced to die. Now imagine the evidence proving you're innocent comes out too late after you have died. That has happened not once or twice, but nearly 200 times since 1973. That's not justice, that is state-sanctioned murder. The truth is, as long as the death penalty exists, we will always risk killing innocent people. And if we can't be 100% sure, then we shouldn't take that chance in the first place. Life in prison without parole is an option. It is an alternative. And it keeps the public safe without taking lives. Gottlieb calls it the civil death penalty, a phrase that shows how the justice system can destroy a person's life, even without physical execution. So if that alternative already exists, why are we still clinging to a more dangerous, irreversible, and outdated method? If you look at the last visual, slide 2 of the visual aid, it's innocent but almost executed. I got this from the website Death Penalty Information Center, and these are the first 6 that popped up. There was much more there. Obviously, it's happened over 190 times. So if you want to see much more pictures, much more faces of people who could have died for something they didn't do, you can just click on the link right there. But those are just 6 people who could have been wrongfully executed for something they did not commit. And the fact that it's more than one, or that it's just one period, is absurd. Let's take a moment to recap. The death penalty is a waste of millions of dollars, treats people unfairly, especially those who are poor or people of color. And worst of all, it risks killing the innocent. We already have safer and more fair alternatives like life in prison without parole. We don't need to kill people to get justice. As a country, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of justice system do we want? One that gives people dignity and fairness, or one that makes deadly mistakes? It's time to make a change. You can be a part of that change by spreading awareness, voting for leaders who support reforms, and challenging the myths people still believe about the death penalty. Because justice should never include the risk of killing the wrong person, and it should never depend on money, race, or power. Let's choose justice that protects life, not ends it. Thank you.